Okay, so we're just going to have a really quick look at using the React useContext hook with some styled components to make a mini app with a theme which you can switch. So yeah, this is just going to be quite a basic setup. There are more complex ways to do this, actually. In fact, the styled components actually do come with their own method of creating changeable themes. However, I'm not a massive fan of it. I find it a little bit top heavy, and I think I'd probably, if I was going to use that, I'd probably end up doing the theming another way. But for mini apps and sort of small projects, the way I'm going to do it today, I think is absolutely fine. You may disagree. Do say so in the comments if that's the case. So I'm just going to start by setting up a couple of components here. We're going to start with the main component, which is just going to anchor the app. I'm writing this in the Scrimba IDE. You might not have come across Scrimba before. It's basically VS Code. What's nice about it is that it's got a little preview console, which is just going to make life a little bit easier. Just for the purposes of making a video, but everything we do here, you could do a create React app and exactly the same thing. It makes no difference. Okay, so the main component, which I have just created up here, is just going to anchor the app. So I'm just going to get a few components listed in there. Okay, so that's the main component. If we try to run that now, we're going to get an error, of course, because we haven't set up any of the components we've imported. But as you can probably already figure out, we've just got a fragment here, and inside we have got a header, a page, and a footer. So that's going to be it for our app. As I say, it's just a very basic one. So next thing to do is just to sort out those three components and just get a little bit of information in there so we can just run the app without getting an error. Now, I'm just on the right-hand side then going to create this folder elements, and I'll just put those three components in there. Okay, so inside these different elements, then we're just going to import React from React. I've got a typo there on the import. And let's just create a basic setup here. So then we've got the function which is called footer, and that is going to return for now, I think we'll just have a fragment in there, and in the middle of that, let's just put a quick h1 and just put footer text in there. And before we forget, let's export default that. And I'm going to be lazy, and I'm going to more or less copy this just for a second. And I see I actually already put it in the wrong one. So this one's actually going to be page. I can say page text. Okay, so I've just saved it, and now we can see in our mini browser, we've got header text, page text, and footer text. That is great. So the next thing to do is just to sort these out into some styled components so they look a little bit nicer. And by the way, this app is not going to win any beauty competitions. It's just a really basic demonstration. So let's set up a folder then for some styled components. And in that styled components folder, we could start off with, let's start off with some text to have in the footer. So I've got this component footer text, and the next thing I want to do is import styled from styled components, Actually, we've got head components. We've got ahead of ourselves because we need the dependency. So I'm just going to add that before I forget. So obviously, this is where the Scrimba IDE and the VS Code one are going to differ slightly. I've got an option here quickly just to add a dependency. Basically it's a GUI for NPM. VS Code, though, I'm sure you know what you're doing. So that's just fine. Styled components. Great. So we've got the style components. So we've imported styled from style components. And then I'm going to create a const here. And this is going to be the footer text. And we set that equal to a styled. And I think it's just going to be a paragraph. Open up our backticks. And let's just give this perhaps a color of blue. That's definitely going to change. I think we have a margin of 1em auto. And I'm going to put a transition on here. And we're just going to have the transition on the color because eventually, obviously, when we switch the theme, that color is nice if those changes just happen a little bit slowly. And then all we need to do down here is export defaults text. Okay, so with those style components then, let's see if we can just make the footer look a little bit nicer. And so we will head back to the footer components. And in here, I'm going to import footer text. So we're going to need the double dot there because we are moving between files. So that one is going to actually be in styled components slash footer text. And then we can come down here and we can take away our H1, I think, and we'll just create a instance of footer text. And I think that's all we're going to need to do for the minute. Let's just give that a save and see what happens. Okay, so we have now got our footer text. It's in blue. It looks like a link. Not to worry. As I say, we will change that a little bit later. I think we also need to have some kind of container so that we are maintaining kind of a sort of decent layout, let's say, on this mini app. So I'm going to create that next. So inside this container, likewise, I'm going to import the style from style components. I'm going to export default container before I forget. And then we're just going to set up a few sort of layout styles in here. So it's going to be const container is going to be a styled div. And let's set it to display flex. And I think we're going to do a justify content space between. Let's have a background color and let's go for gray just for the time being. As I say, we will change that likewise, the text color. And I'm going to have a border at the bottom, and that border is going to be 1 pixel solid, and it's going to be a fairly dark gray for now. We don't want any margin on this container. Padding, I think we will have just 1em of padding on the sides. It's going to take a width of 100%. I'm going to use this box sizing border box, which if you haven't come across is really handy just for making sure everything is contained within that 100%. We don't want any overlaps. We don't want any horizontal scrolling. And then likewise, let's set up a transition. And that transition can be background, color, and border bottom. I think those are the ones that will change with the theme. And it's just going to be half a second, just like we did before. So with that container sorted, I'm just going to add that to the footer. So if we import container from style components. So again, we've got the 2 dots to get us into the correct, to get out of one directory and into the next one. And styled components / container. Oh, and actually, I'm doing this in the wrong place, aren't I? This is the footer text. We want this in the footer. So let's just take, cut and paste that, pop up to the footer. Here we are. Import container from style components container. And then we'll just create an instance of the container here. And let's just close that one down there. So we've got everything in there. Our footer text is all contained in this container. And there we are. We have our little container. Still got some margins on the edges, but we'll deal with that later. I may have made an error there. Right. Let's crack on then with the header. So we're going to need quite a lot of this. So I'm just going to cut and paste it. Of course, we're going to delete some. So we need to import React from React, which we've got. Didn't need to copy that. Not going to need footer text here. We are going to need this container though. So, and I think probably it's in the header that we're going to have the little button to change the theme, but we're going to deal with that a little bit later. So around our header text, then I'm just going to put the container. And I think here we're going to just change this. It's going to say my site name. And I think we should have a little title component if we're getting into our styled components. That makes sense. So we'll create that in a second. And that's probably going to do us here. So let's think about the title component. That's going to come from the same directory as container. And let's just pop over here then and create this in the style components. So this one's not going to be a biggie. We're going to import styled from style components. And then we'll set up our const. So it's going to be a styled h1. And for now, we're just going to have color back. And again, we'll put a transition here for when we get things moving. Color 0.5 seconds. And I think that is all we need here. So let's just export that one. And give it a save and see. Okay, so we've got a pretty ugly header. We've got a pretty ugly footer. And in the middle, we just need to have our page set up. So let's go for that one next. So in Page, I've just copied over a few lines of code. We're actually going to change them a little bit. I think we are going to, don't need a title. No, actually, no, we might keep the title. The container, I think we're going to have to modify a bit. So I'm going to set up a new container called Page Container, which we'll create shortly. And then on this page, going to contain everything inside the page container component. And let's have a title component here. Just reuse the title component we've made. Doesn't mean it's going to be the same size as the header, which is not perfect. Obviously, you know, this is not a production site, so we're not going to worry about that too much. There's our page title. And I think in here we should have paragraph, and might as well have a little bit of lorem ipsum in here. Right, I think one paragraph will probably do. Now, let's just get this page container sorted out. So we'll create that quickly. I've just copied over everything from the other container, and we're just going to make some changes here. So, of course, the name is different. We still want it to be display flex, and we're going to put in here a flex direction of column, just because we want to have our title and our text vertically, of course. And I'm just going to align the items to the center. Background color for the minute can stay. Just have a color on the text. I think for now that can just stay as black. Well, it will default to that anyway. Border bottom we'll keep. Don't need quite a lot of this. I think we're going to get rid of that. We might have a little bit of extra padding, at least in one dimension. And I think that will probably do us. Right, let's give this a save and see how it looks. Okay. Incredibly ugly, but that's absolutely fine. So one thing I might do outside of styled components, and we do still have a little CSS file here, is that on the body, I might just change the margin and set it to 0. That's just going to, you might have seen that change on the mini browser there. So we had that much margin. We can just get rid of that all in one go. That's quite handy. And a font family, I'm just going to set it to Banana for now. It looks a little bit nicer. Right. We need a couple of things. One of them is a button for changing our context. And we might go ahead and set that up next, and then we can just add the context when we've actually got everything in place. Okay, so for the button, I'm just going to set up a couple of style components. The first one is going to be the button itself. And so in there, we just need to import styled from style components. Then let's create our button. I'm going to set that equal to styled. And within style components, we've got the option to call it a button. Of course, it's an HTML element. And we're going to set the color. Let's start it off as dark. We're actually not going to use that, but we're just going to keep that there for a second. Background color, we're going to set to transparent. It's not going to have a border. And we'll put a transition on the color of course, half a second. So that's the button component sorted out. Now, actually, that button, instead of having text in it, is just going to contain an icon. And so I want to sort that icon out next. So with the icon, again, we've imported styled from style components. So this icon is going to be in a styled div. And within that div, what we're going to do is we're going to take anything with the I CSS selector, and we're going to give it, for now, a color of yellow, a margin of 1em, a font size of 2em, and as ever, transition on the color with 5 seconds. And let's just export that icon. So now, if we go back to the header, I'm going to import all of that stuff. So we want the button and the icon. And down here then, I think perhaps just, yeah, obviously just under the title. So we're using, on this container, we've got display flex. So it's hopefully going to come out on the right-hand side. Here, let's just set up this button. And inside the button, then, we're going to have this icon. And inside the icon that we're going to use is going to be one from Font Awesome. So that is going to be for light bulb. And for some reason, it is light bulb O. And let's just put an aria hidden on there. So we've got an error, doesn't like it. Why? Oh, we just haven't closed off the I tag. Now, before we check that, we had best just make sure we are importing the Font Awesome CDN. I'm going to do it the quick and easy way, just by sticking a link to it in the index.html. So down in the index.html, we've got our style sheet, and just underneath that, we have just copied and pasted that from Cloudflare. Let's just give that a save and see if it works. And it does that. We get our light bulb there. At the moment, it doesn't do anything. I think we should go into button and put a cursor pointer. Give that a save. That's it. So now that whole area lights up. They don't have to hit the light bulb exactly. So now we need to set up some context. So we're going to use the useContext hook. So I'm going to set up a new folder, and this folder is just going to be called context. And inside context, I am going to create theme context. Now, styled components does come with its own theme context. So that could be a little bit confusing if you've come across that. I'm not using that today. As I said at the beginning, I'm not a massive fan of it. But it is quite useful to call things what they are, and this is a theme context, so I'm going to call it that. And so theme context itself is not going to be a very big file at all. We're just going to import React and create context from, of course, React. And then in const theme context, we want camel case. What we're going to do is we are going to use create context, and we're actually going to just initialize that with null, because we're actually going to set our theme style somewhere else. And we're going to export default theme context. That is all we need to do with that. That's not going to have changed anything on the site yet at all. Now, if we go to our main component here, so we have got our header, our page, and our footer. The next thing we want to do then is to import theme context. And we're going to import that, of course, from context. Now, all we need to do is wrap whichever parts of our app need access to the context in a theme context provider. In this case, that's just going to be everything. It doesn't have to be everything, but you can just put it in part of the app. In fact, it's very common to do that, but here it's just going to go around everything. So any of the 3 components that need theme context will have access to it. So it's just theme context.provider. We need to close off this bottom one. Now, anything in our theme context then can be provided to those components, but we need to do that by adding a value prop. So what are we going to pass in here? So whatever we pass is what is going to go down to those components. Now, we've already got a load of the CSS in our style components, so we're not going to be passing down loads of CSS. All we're really going to be doing is passing down a variable. And so what I'm actually going to do now is I'm also going to import one more hook, and that is going to be useState. And then in our main component, I'm going to set up some states. So I'm going to say theme and set theme. So the second one in this array is the function that we need to change the theme. And we're going to set that to useState, and we're going to initialize it with dark. So what are we going to send down here? Well, we're actually going to send 2 things. So we've got the curly braces to open up this to contain this prop, but we need to also send down an object. So I'm going to put 2 more curly braces, and then we're going to send down theme and set theme. I'm saying send down as if it's props, share, because it's context. So now both the theme, which is at the moment dark, and the ability to change that theme have been provided throughout this app. And we should be able to see that by making some changes. So let's just go ahead now and see what we can do. Okay, so I'm going to start again down in the footer. So if we come to the footer component, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import the context. So we're going to import theme context from context, theme context. Right, so now we've got that inside that app. What are we going to do with it? Well, firstly, I want to destructure it because we want to get access just to the theme variable. We're not changing anything from here. So I'm going to say const theme equals use context, and that is the context we're using is the theme context. So all we need to do, one thing we've forgotten, we need to actually import the use context hook so we can use it. Okay, so what we're saying is use the use context hook. Theme context is the context we're looking for, and we're going to extract theme from that. Now, I'm actually going to do two things here. I'm going to pass the container and the footer text a prop each, and that prop is just going to be theme. Sorry, and I've called the prop color because, well, basically that's what it will be changing. So now, if we go over to footer text, and we can just think a little bit about the what we can actually do with that with that color prop that we've just passed down to it. And what we're going to do then is change this color. So instead of it being blue, so we're looking at the color of the text here. Let's open this up. We're going to use, because this is a string literal, we just need the $, the curly braces, and now we can get down to business. So firstly, this has access to the props, which is great. And we need an arrow function. And what we're going to do here is we're going to use a ternary. So props.color equal to dark, as it is now. So if that's the case, then we want our text color to be, say, white smoke. If not, we're going to go with this kind of color here, which is a fairly dark color. Right. Let's just save that and see what's happened. Okay, so the theme is dark, and look, we've got our footer text is now white smoke. If we head to main, let's try changing that now to light. We haven't done anything with light, but our footer text does change just because it's not dark. So leave that as dark for now. So you get the idea. That's what we're doing. We're using that state, and we can use it inside any of our style components that we need to. Okay, so that's the footer sorted. It's only the text color there that's going to change. We might just cut and paste that. That's just going to save us a little bit of time. So let's move on to the page component. And so inside the page component here, likewise, we are going to import the use context hook. And we're also going to import the theme context. In fact, I'll just cut and paste that quickly. So we're importing the theme context. And then likewise, down here, we're going to destructure that quickly. So we're going to say const theme is equal to use context theme context. And again, we're going to pass some props here. So color is equal to theme. And now if we go to our page container, and inside the page container, we're going to do roughly the same thing as we did with the footer text. So in page container, instead of having color black, color, we'll open up these curly braces with the $, and in here we're going to say if the props.color is equal to dark, then we want to have the white smoke again, and if not, we want to have that dark color. Now with the background color, we're actually going to do approximately the same thing. So, but we're going to make it opposite. So all we're going to do is we're going to change that one there to light. So therefore, whatever the theme color is, the text and the background will always be opposites. If the theme color is light, then the background color will be white smoke. If the theme color is dark, the background color will be the dark gray, and vice versa. So that's that sorted out. If we give that a save now, let's see what we get. Okay, so something there has gone a little bit wrong. That is probably because we haven't actually set up the ability yet to have a light context, because we haven't sorted out changing the theme color in context. So we're not going to worry about that too much. Or have we made another mistake here? Let's just try something. If we change that to dark, and in fact, we're just going to swap these around now. I'm pretty sure it'll save us having to debug it later. Perhaps it's not such a good idea to have it done that way, but let's see what we get now. Oh, still no change. So the background color, so the theme context at the moment is set to dark. Okay. So that means that the background color here should be dark, but it's not. Something. Okay, so there was just a typo there on that hex code. So that is now sorted. So we have got the page color as dark and the text is light. Let's just see what will happen if we change this to light. And we get the opposite. So that's pretty useful. We're not doing anything yet with this title attribute, so we might have to come back to that just in a moment. So in the page tab where we're calling title, let's do the same thing. Let's pass this prop, which is color.theme. And in title, then where we've got color black, let's just copy and paste that one. So instead of having color black, we are going to have same thing. Oh, we've copied and pasted actually the same typo as before. There we are. That's better. Where did that come from? I see. That's the error there. So that's that sorted. And now let's head up to the header. So if we take in, of course, the theme context that we need, and we're also going to need to import useContext. And I think that is everything. So the header is actually going to be a little bit different. So here, when we destructure the context, we're actually going to take both. We're going to take the theme and the set theme. If you remember, we passed both down in the main component here, theme, set, theme. And we're going to take both of those from useContext. And that is, of course, from theme context, which we've imported. Right. Now we are going to have a button here, then, which controls the state. So let's just create a little handle click function, and it's going to go down here on this button. So firstly, the button is going to need the same color prop as the other components have had. And then we're going to have an onClick method here, and we'll call this one, let's call it something rational. We're going to call this handle theme change, and I've put it outside the curly braces, handle theme change. So let's just come up here and we'll get this function sorted out. So it's handle theme change, and all this function needs to do is utilize the set theme. And I think all we need to do in here is just use theme itself to form a ternary. So we're going to say theme is light. Then what we're going to do is we're going to set theme to dark, else set it to light. And that should do the trick. We've got an error. Function handle theme change. Why doesn't it like that? Oh, because we haven't set up the function properly. There we are. Let's give that a save. Now, if we just click, okay, we're getting some theme change there. We haven't done the header yet, but that's fine. We're just coming up to that. So, in the header itself, then, we need to just pass down these props. So to the container, we're going to say color is theme, and we can do that several times. So title is going to be the same, and icon, I'm wondering if we're a little bit doubled up actually on having the icon and the color both taking that prop, but let's just see where we end up with it. Perhaps we can refactor it a little bit. So if we go to the icon text, so where we've got the color yellow, maybe we want to change that depending. So again, let's get the props in here. So it's props.color. And again, if that's just triple equal to light, we could use the color black, else yellow. So it's kind of the opposite. It's like going to be like switching on the light or switching off the light. At least that's the idea. Let's give that a save. Oh, and something's gone wrong. Props is not defined. Where did we just called that from header. Yeah, no, we have made actually a bit of an error, haven't we? So this one here, we need an arrow function to return all of that. That's gonna hopefully do it. Yeah, there we are. Okay, so now the light bulb changes color along with everything else. So actually, we don't need to do anything with that button. So let's just quickly tidy that up in header, I think it is. So we need the onClick, but we don't need that color change. And perhaps those grays are a little bit dull. We could perhaps do something a little bit more exciting with those. So I think down in the container, down here, we're not changing any background color. Oh, that's true, we're not. That's why it looks a bit dull. So the background color, again, so this time, let's remember to bring in the props, and then our props.color. If that's equal to light. How about we go for lovely, sure nobody's going to enjoy that. And if it's dark, let's go for the dark gray. So there's the dark theme, and there's the light theme with a nice luminous green. What's not to like about that? So that's basically it. Things to think about. There, when using style components with the use context hook to change theme, there's various ways to do it. I think it's a really legitimate criticism of this is that we're using context and we're then also using props to get it to the style component. Absolutely fine for a small app, but then you could also argue for a small app, why bother with the context? You could just pass it through props, and I think that's a fair criticism. If you go for the inbuilt styled components theme context, things for me get very convoluted very quickly. So I thought this was a slightly neater and more easily sort of controlled way of doing it. But of course, you may differ. But anyway, that's the principle of the thing. I hope you've enjoyed this or taken something from it. And by all means, do leave some feedback in the comments. I'm going to put a link to this scrim in the comments. So if you want to look at the code yourself and play around with it, you can. I might also link to it on my GitHub as well. Right. Thanks for watching and listening. Take care.